Welcome to At Home with Founders. I'm your host, Jessica, and this is your space to come home to yourself, to your vision, and to the kind of business that you actually want to build. Each episode is a blend of honest conversation, thoughtful reflection, and grounded strategy designed to support you as you build a business that honors your values, your capacity, and the life that you're here to lead. So whether you're listening on a walk, in the car, or in a quiet moment in between it all, take a breath and settle in. And let's have a conversation. So you can exhale here for a second because I want to talk about something that almost no one says out loud, but I see it every single week behind the scenes walking into businesses. And if you've ever looked at another founder's business online from afar and thought, wow, she really has it together. Or maybe her systems must be so streamlined for her to be doing it so well. Her team probably runs like a well-oiled machine. Well, if that's the case, this episode is for you. So let's think of that founder that you admire from afar. From the outside, everything looks beautiful. The website, well, it's refined, it's beautifully laid out, it's thoughtfully written, and it's so elevated. The Instagram feed looks cohesive, very curated. You can truly feel the brand. And her content is crystal clear. It's confident, like she knows exactly what she's doing. And when she shows up on stories, she's so articulate. She explains things so well. She's grounded, she's composed, and you get this subtle feeling like she's really on top of it all. She's got it figured out. But here's what I want to gently pull that curtain back on. That version of her business, the one that you're seeing online, is only one layer of the full picture. Because behind the scenes, in many of these businesses, even the ones that are doing multiple 6 and 7 figures, it's a completely different experience behind the scenes. And I say this with experience. I've walked into so many businesses that even myself had a perception of, businesses that I thought must have been incredibly well run because they appeared very polished, very structured, and super dialed in online. I even wondered at times, what could this founder be reaching out to me for? What could I possibly even help with? Like, I'm truly puzzled. But then I get inside of the business, and what I find is it's not a sign of failure. It's not even close to that, but it's a level of disorganization that no one sees from the outside. Things that I see now, what I'm talking about here are, CRMs that are barely used or only used at maybe 20% capacity. Google Drives where nothing is properly named. Folders are inside of folders. Things are lost, duplicated, maybe missing entirely. Thousands of freestanding Google Docs floating around, some of them with only a few words in them. Client delivery that changes every time because there's no clear process in place. Team members are asking constant questions, often the same questions over and over because there's no real structure for them to follow. There's endless Slack messages, voice notes, random documents holding key information instead of one source of truth for everybody. Onboarding of new clients, that feels very different with every client because how you do it lives in one person's head instead of in a system for everyone to follow. And then if you zoom out even further, there's no real visibility on numbers. So whether the offers are priced for profitability, revenue's coming in, but there's no clear tracking, there's no forecasting, there's no understanding of what's actually driving it. There's no defined KPIs for the business as a whole, but also for team members. So there's no way to measure what's working, what's not, how performance is measuring up. There's no consistent way of collecting client feedback, so improvements are very reactive or any at all instead of intentional. And marketing, well, it's happening, but it's not anchored in an actual strategy. So basically throwing spaghetti noodles at the wall and just putting stuff up for the sake of putting stuff up. Content is created in the moment instead of planned with strategic direction. And when it comes to that bigger picture, that North Star, time actually spent stepping back from the day to day and strategizing the business for long-term growth, there's almost none. There's no CEO time, no space to think about the next quarter, let alone the next year. And that founder that you admire, that I've admired, is still really much at the center of everything in the business. So they are managing the leads, onboarding clients, delivering the work, approving all of their team's work before it goes out because they have no structure and systems in place. They're fixing errors themselves. They're answering all the messages and emails. They're posting to social media, and you name it, they're doing it all. And it's not because they want to. It's because the business has been structured to depend on her all the time. And from the outside, you would never know it because what she's feeling in that reality is very different. She's thinking, and maybe you can relate if you are in this season of business as well, why can't I figure this out? I'm good at what I do, so why does everything behind the scenes feel so freaking messy? Other people don't seem to be struggling like this. She also has a perception of other people that she admires and sees online. And underneath that, there's this pressure because she expects more from herself. She's built something legit, like an actual business. It's making money and it's beautiful. Clients are coming in, which is incredible because that is difficult to get going for some. Revenue is growing. People are watching her. They're respecting her and her work. But there's also this quiet voice that says, at this level, I should have this handled. And that's where the weight starts to build. So let me say something very clearly. This is normal. The mess that you are experiencing is normal. Not you're doing something wrong normal, but this is part of the growth process normal. And I want to give you even more context here because I think this is where so much unnecessary pressure comes from. At different stages of the business, as you're growing it, things are supposed to look different behind the scenes. So let's talk about the different phases here. At the earlier stages, so let's say between 100 to 250K or even earlier than that in revenue, things are naturally more manual. You are still figuring things out. You're probably the only one in your business, so you're doing it all. You're figuring out what your offers really look like, how you want to deliver your work, what tools even make sense for you and how you work and what your business is. Systems are simple and light. Your processes are still evolving. A lot still lives in your head. That's all part of the development process. You are figuring out the fundamentals of how you want to deliver your work, which is the core aspect of your business. So, of course, that is what you focus on at first. The rest waits. Then, as you grow beyond 250K, demand naturally increases. And that's when the friction starts to show. Because now you have more clients, possibly your first hires or contractors, and more moving parts to manage for you as the founder. But the back end, the structure hasn't fully caught up to that yet. So things are going to feel inconsistent. They're going to feel slightly chaotic, messier than they should feel. This is where most founders start to think that something is wrong. And it's not. It just means that your business has outgrown its initial structure that you had in place. And even at higher levels, so let's talk about beyond 500K now, where possibly there's an in-house team. You have established offers, that's settled now. You have strong revenue. There are still gaps. They just look different. So rather than what they were at first, now it's maybe a lack of integration between the systems so everything works cohesively together as one operating system. Maybe there's leadership bottlenecks, inconsistent team execution. Maybe there's no clear decision-making rhythms, data that exists, but it's not actually being used strategically. So the business does work, of course, but it doesn't feel fully supported. So every level has its own version of mess, and I don't think that you can truly escape it. It just evolves as you grow. So it just changes and you adapt and you put in the systems and the structure to support it. Now, here's what no one really teaches. You didn't start your business because you were trained to build operations. Even I, who is an operations expert, have messes behind the scenes with areas that I'm not an expert in. You started your business because you had an incredible skill set, a beautiful craft, great expertise and experience in something that you're genuinely exceptional at, and you build momentum from that. But there's a difference. There's a difference between being excellent at what you do and knowing how to build a business that runs without you at the center of it all. So, those are two completely different skill sets, and that's okay. And most founders, honestly, they were never taught the second one. You were never taught how to run a business and what a legit business actually entails. No one sat you down and said, here's how you build operational infrastructure. Here's how you design systems that actually allow you to scale sustainably. Here's how you create clarity for a team. Here's how you step out of being the doer and into being the leader. Here's how to scale a business sustainably. So instead, you're learning it all in real time. You're learning it from experience, from trial and error, from things that you maybe saw on Instagram or Pinterest, or that you heard on a podcast or read in some kind of online publication. And then you took what you could from it and you tried to implement it the best way that you could. So, of course, there's going to be gaps. Of course, things are going to feel messy in places. Of course, parts of your business are still going to rely on you more than they should, because what you've done is build a business without a blueprint. So while delivering for clients, while showing up consistently, while figuring things out as you go, it's not a personal shortcoming. It's simply a reflection of what your business now requires based off of where you're at. And at a certain point, what got you here is no longer what will support where you're going. And this is usually the phase where things start to feel harder to maintain. And it's not because the business isn't working, because we know it is. You know, the revenue's strong, clients are coming in, you have success to go off of. But because there's more demand than you are able to support, there's more moving parts now. There's more people involved. There's more decisions that are being routed through you. So now, even with support, even with that contractor or that team member, whoever you've hired, you're still the one that everything runs through. And that's the part that creates the exhaustion. So it's not about you doing anything wrong. It's how your business is currently designed to operate in the phase that you're at, in the season of business that you're at. And the mess that you might be feeling behind the scenes is simply a business that has outgrown the way that it was built initially. And I also want to acknowledge something that doesn't get talked about enough as well. Letting someone see this part of your business, so like an ops expert or some kind of other strategist or expert that you're bringing in, it's vulnerable because there's a part of you that thinks, what are they going to think? Should I have this more figured out by now? Is this embarrassing at the level that I'm at? But what I can tell you, having seen so many businesses at this stage and seeing inside or behind the scenes of them, nothing is unusual about where you're at right now. What you're experiencing is a natural point in the growth of the business. And you are also not meant to know how to do it all. You are not meant to know how to build every system, how to design workflows. What does that even mean? Right? I know, but you're not meant to know that. You're not meant to know how to build a team structure perfectly or carry the full operational weight alone. Strong businesses aren't built by founders who know everything. They're built by founders who know where they need to be the expert and where they don't need to be the expert. And this is why they hire, not just for help or to lighten the load, but for perspective, to strengthen the parts of the business where they were never meant to lead and where they simply are not experts in, for capability in areas that aren't their zone of genius. Because your role was never meant to be the best employee in your business, which is, let's be honest, what you are right now. Your role is to lead, to create vision, to hold the direction, to make data-driven decisions from clarity, not from overwhelm or from a reactive moment in your day. But this only comes about, so it only becomes available when your role shifts out of that day-to-day of the business. So if you're feeling like things look really good on the outside, but behind the scenes, it just hasn't fully matched yet, there's nothing unusual about where you're at right now. And I want you to hear this. You are not the only one struggling with this. You are not behind everybody else. You are not failing at running a business. You are simply at the point where your business is asking to be rebuilt in a way that supports you too. And that shift, it changes everything about how your business actually feels to run. Instead of trying to clean everything up at once, I just want you to pause and just start noticing. Because a lot of the times you're just in it and you're not taking time to become aware. So, where are things feeling unclear? Where are decisions constantly coming back to you? Where does your team need you more than they should? And that is where your business is asking for the support next. So that's a wrap on today's conversation. If something in this episode resonated, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a DM on Instagram. You can find me at Haven Oaks Co. Thank you for being here. At Home with Founders is more than a podcast. It's a space for thoughtful, intentional women building businesses that are meant to last. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who would feel supported by this conversation. And if you're craving deeper support, guidance, or structure inside your business, you can always find me at Haven Oaks. Until next time, keep building in a way that feels like home.